I knew I wanted to be a teacher when I was 7 or 8 years old. We lived in a little town outside of Peoria, Illinois, and I would go around to all the neighbors' houses and knock on the door and collect all their children. I would take them to the garage where my chalkboard and chalk awaited, and I would hold school every day. And these children had to do math. These children had to do spelling, all right? And they actually sat there and listened to me, and their mothers adored me because for 2 or 3 hours a day, they knew where their kids were, they were well taken care of, and it was free. But that was when the bug really bit me that I wanted to be a teacher because it was something I felt that I could do and do well. I finally got the opportunity to come back to college in the 1990s, and the college I chose was Norco College. I had been in corporate America for 23 years, and actually my final job in corporate America was as the director of sales training for the United States. So I was responsible for teaching workshops and classes for all new employees, and that was with Max Factor & Company. When I got to Norco and I started to teach, it was very apparent to me that I had been very fortunate in teaching classes in the corporate world and in having instructors in my programs that had taught me how to be collaborative. There is nothing more frightening than to think you are the person in the room that must have all of the knowledge and have all of the answers to all of the questions students might have. What I discovered was that when I shared the responsibility for the classroom with my students and created a learning community where everybody in the classroom was both teacher and learner, that responsibility became a shared one. And I learned as much from my students as they could possibly ever learn from me. I have always considered myself a facilitator. I facilitate opportunities of learning for students, and it's their responsibility to access those opportunities. And together, we work together so that they have better knowledge and, of course, improve their grades, etc., and reach their ultimate academic goals. As I got less and less naive, as I got deeper and deeper into my career, I learned that indeed I had to decide what role I was going to play in the lives of my students in the classroom. And I decided that, based on all of the research I had seen, there were several things I knew that I had to do. First of all, I had to give them a comfortable environment where they could speak their minds. They still had to be respectful, but I have basically asked every single person who has ever taken a class from me to be in charge of their own learning. As I said, I'm a facilitator. I can open up those opportunities, but I cannot help them access it more or can't do the work for them. Secondly, I always held to high expectations. I constantly would tell them that the bar was so high, that the bar was not going to move, that they either had to come up to the bar or they would not pass the class. Another thing that we have done for probably about 10 years every spring in my English 1B classes is we have put on a murder trial. There is a poem by Robert Browning called Porphyria's Lover. And I have to teach poetry as part of the curriculum for English 1B. I'm not a poet. I'm not a fan of poetry unless it's Shakespeare. And so I thought, how can we do this so that the poem can be done, we can talk about the genre, and we can dig deep into the poetry. It just so happens that this poem has an equal amount of evidence for finding Porphyria's lover guilty of murder in the first degree or not guilty by reason of insanity. So about week 4 of each semester, I offer my classes the opportunity of writing a paper or putting on a live court trial with a prosecution team, a defense team, and a jury. I have never had a class pick the paper. They have always picked the court trial, which is probably 10 times more work than the paper would have been. But they will tell you, and I have assessed it, that what they have loved more than anything else was the collaborative work they got to participate in as part of a team. The most heartwarming thing that has happened to me is I am considered very challenging by students, yet they still seem to want to sign up for my classes. And a lot of times what happens is they'll tell you, I'm challenging, she's hard, she's tough. And about 4 years later, I'll get a card, or I'll get an email, I'll get something, or they'll pop in my office and say, you know what? If it hadn't been for you, I wouldn't be where I am today.